to really take this seriously was when, Elder Whitlock and Elder Leavitt, they were at our house, and my daughter wanted to play softball, and Elder Whitlock said, okay, let's go play softball. And I realized that we were more important than their job and their message. And like the most important thing was what we needed. And, and so just learning really early, how to meet people where they were at.
All right. Welcome to the Best Mission Stories. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for listening and for watching. I'm your host, Will Bozeman, also known as Elder Bozeman on the show here. And I also want to remind everyone, as you're listening, if you happen to have a mission story that you would like to tell, and something that you think will be funny, spiritual, or interesting, or any of the kind, love to have you on the show. Please reach out to me. The contact info will be in the description, and we'll connect and we'll get you on the show. So thank you for that. We have an awesome guest here today, Mike Leavitt. I'm sure you have a lot of really fun stuff to talk about. So did you go obviously by Elder Leavitt on the mission? So are you?
I did.
You want to? Well, I'll refer to you as
that
Elder
or
Leavitt.
Master. It depends on the context. That's why I let the sisters call me.
Okay. Yes, the Jedi Master. It's awesome. Well, we'll jump in. Tell us. You just start with a little bit of your backstory here. Where you went, where you served, and then maybe a little bit of how you got there and some things like that. We'll jump into a few stories. Go for it.
Yeah, no problem, Elder Bozeman. Man, first, thanks for having me on. I'm super. No, it was funny when because we had talked about that you wanted to do this podcast, and I thought it was a great idea, but after hearing the first episode, I was like, man, this is really cool. I think this is getting me pumped up. Like, I want to get back in the field, man. Let's go knock some doors, brother. It was, but go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I love in my ward recently. There's been several return missionaries, and in most of the cases where they speak, they only had like maybe 15 minutes, and they're sharing a couple of stories. You don't get a whole lot. And,
right.
And on top of that, there's a lot of stuff from the pulpit they're not going to, talk about, some of the embarrassing stuff, or maybe even some of the funnier stuff, and also some of the personal stuff they don't always talk about from the pulpit. You miss a lot of those stories. And I just thought about that, over the years. But like I was telling you before, I mean, this whole concept it's 10, 12, I don't know how many years, 10, 12, 15 years in the making. I was originally going to be a blog, just writing the stories out. And finally decided, you know what? It's just record it and etch it in stone so everyone can hear the stories and they'll be out there. So
this is way better, and I think I think the timing is right for it. I think right now, I think that there's a great need for people to be excited about missionary work. It's funny, we talk a lot about inside the church, outside the church, but I think we're all recognizing that right now, we are in like a serious spiritual war. And, how is a spiritual war fought? Well, it's fought Christ's way, which is, to win the hearts and minds of one person at a time, and bringing that soul to him. And so I love what you're doing, and I think it's important that we get people that are just excited about the work.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that very much, and I hope so too. And like I always, in most episodes, I remind everyone, if you haven't served a mission, if you are a young adult considering going on a mission or about to go on a mission, maybe some of the stuff you're hearing here is going to help. Sometimes there's great advice, sometimes there's great lessons in the stories. And then, of course, obviously, there's a lot of people out there who might want to go on a couples mission or senior mission. There's a lot of opportunity. And like you just said, I hear these stories and I want to get out and go knock doors.
Yeah.
Like I imagine that somebody's gonna, hear some of these stories and be like, I want to experience that. I want to experience being out on a mission like that and talking to people. So that being said, let's jump into your story.
Yeah.
Tell
So
us about it.
yeah. So I mean, I grew up in Northern California, a little town called Grass Valley, in the foothills up there. And and I grew up in the church. My father was pretty prominent in the area. He was a bishop, and he was in the stake presidency. And I'm the oldest of 7 kids, so there's always a lot of expectations on me, which was fine. I don't know. I most of that kind of stuff I either ignored or did, whichever. But I really was grateful to my parents because they were never overbearing. Like, they always taught what was right, and let me make my own decision and suffer my own consequences. And they were always there to pick me up. And so I'm really grateful for them and what they taught. But I went on a vocal scholarship to Rick's College for a year, and while I was at Rick's, I turned in my papers. I had turned 19 when I was there, and actually I was probably a little older. I think I was, yeah, anyway, I was 19, not quite 20. And I wanted to finish my first year. And we did and this is kind of where I have a strange story. I was originally called to Brazil. I was called to the Sao Paulo Leste mission, the Sao Paulo East mission. And so I went to the MTC and started a language course, and then I got sick, and ended up coming home. And actually it was really cool because I was home for like a week while they were trying to figure stuff out. They actually put me out in a threesome in my area. And so I was maybe, I was still living with the missionaries. I was still called as a missionary. I hadn't been released.
Right.
And so it was funny, like my first week out, I'm in Rockland, California, which is maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours from where I grew up. And I'm with these amazing missionaries. I don't even remember their names because I was with them for like 2 weeks. But we ended up having a baptism. We ended up just having some really great experiences. And
in your first week, huh?
I know. Like, I got to tell you, I was pretty blessed on my mission. I had some pretty remarkable experiences. Anyway, so then, long story short, I ended up kind of getting recalled to Nebraska. So I was called to the Nebraska Omaha mission, which was a brand new mission. It had been in existence about a year. And the president was President Ma. But he unfortunately not contracted, but he had ALS, and it got pretty bad in that first year. And so, like, within a month, I never met President Ma because President Bangerter, who was a former state representative of Utah, I think his first cousins, Thomas S. Monson, and so he was called to be the mission president. And so I think I was like his first missionary to bring on. And here I am, like this, problem child, because I'm coming from a different mission. And I'm not coming in with the MTC, so I'm like by myself, I'm just, hanging out. And but President Bangerter, man, that guy was a stud. He owns Bangerter Trucking, or owned Bangerter. He passed away not too long ago, but he owned Bangerter Trucking, and he was just a down to earth, cool guy. A guy that, like, if you weren't Mormon, you'd want to have a beer with, that kind of a guy. But totally spiritual, totally, like, just loved the Lord. He loved his wife, and I was anyway. So that's how I got to Nebraska, and I mean, there's more there, but it was funny. I tell that story because I don't think he knew what he was expecting from me. And so he put me literally on the furthest outskirts as my training. I, I mean, the mission boundary was like 20 minutes from this little town called Greenfield, Iowa. Greenfield, Iowa was, we had two towns in our area. Greenfield and Fontenelle, and they both. I think Greenfield was the bigger of the two and had maybe 2,500 people in the town. Fontenelle had, I think, 1,400 people in the town.
Wow, yes.
The nearest branch was in
huge metropolises.
no, he was hiding me. I don't know why I'm getting this Elder Leavitt character. He was probably right, but the nearest branch was in Atlantic, which was about a 75-mile drive. There was one member in Greenfield who happened to be, the town doctor. And so my companion, Elder Whitlock, and I, we were lived in his basement for about 2 weeks while we found a place in Greenfield. But there was literally to say we were by ourselves, it's like one of those stories where the guy who goes to some island by himself, and that's kind of how it was.
I mean, you said, the actual closest branch was an hour and a half away, basically. I mean,
yeah.
And you were serving in these little small towns with only one other member. So, I mean, yeah, you're on your own, man.
and I'll tell you, man, and I was, you know how you are as a new missionary. When you're a greenie, you're going to baptize the world. And I was like, we're going to do, President Bangerter, we're going to do this. And he's like, okay, go talk to some of the more, prominent members of the community. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go talk to the mayor. Let's go. And I actually wrote, I mean, it's so hilarious because it's one of those towns where they know that you're coming before you even know that you're coming, And but I wrote a little article, and I think I think I have it somewhere in my journal. It was called, the missionaries have arrived. And I wrote this little article and put it in the Greenfield newspaper, and it's talking about us and how to contact us about the church and everything. I think it was conference weekend, so it's if anybody's interested in attending conference with us, we're going to do it at Brother Segura's home, and yeah, so it was. I mean, kind of getting thrown into the wilderness, but it was a good experience, and let
me stop for a second. I want to.
Yeah.
You actually put an ad in the paper. You actually took out.
I called the editor of the paper and put an actual article in the paper.
Okay. So everyone listening, this is an example of being bold. Call the editor of the paper, write an article about the church and how you are available to teach people about Jesus Christ.
Exactly.
Contact me here, and I'll teach you all about Jesus Christ. That's cool. That's really cool.
That's pretty much verbatim what I wrote. And
that's cool.
Yeah, and I'm sure and yeah, it was funny, and we and so we would talk to people, and I thought the biggest problem was to try to get people to get to the branch before they get baptized. How are we going to get people there? I know the Segura's can carry 2 people. Is that enough room?
Oh my gosh. Oh man, you're jogging up lots of memories for me as well. I served in an area that if you drove from one corner to the other, it'd be over 3 hours. In my first area, it was a big, huge section in northeast Washington. And the whole northeast corner really of Washington was basically one big area. So it was a lot of space, but there's nothing like that though. I mean, I was still, as sparse as it was, we still had a few wards and everything else. But yeah, it sounds remote.
It was remote. But I will say, I really the people were so sweet. I would go every P day. We would do service at one of these, well, at the assisted living center in town, and and it was wonderful. I would go and I would play the piano and we would sing. For those of you who don't know, I'm a musician, and that's what I do. And so I would play the piano, and I would do, and it was great because I got to learn like these old Protestant hymns, the old rugged cross, what a friend we have in Jesus, which is Israel, God is calling. I would learn, just all these beautiful, beautiful tunes. The one about the sparrow. Anyway, it's just amazing stuff. And then, so I did that, and in fact, the director of we'd been going for maybe a month or so, and so he came up to me. He's like, I really want. When I was a kid, I would my parents would listen to music in the spoken word, and they just loved the Tabernacle Choir. Is there any way I can get a recording of the Mormon Tabernacle Choir? And I was like, I think we can figure that out.
This is a non-member of the church. Is like just a regular person.
Yeah,
asking for this.
Yeah, he was the manager or director of the assisted living center, and I guess after a few weeks of us showing up, he figured out that we didn't have horns and weren't that scary, and so it was really so I found the little catalog and gave it to him, and I'll tell you, like, there were some amazing people there. Those farmers, like these in the assisted living center, there'd be like, I remember this woman who was in her 90s and had never left the county.
Wow.
She was just a farm girl. She always grew up in that county, and Greenfield, I think, was the county. Yeah, Greenfield was the county seat there, and the metropolis of Greenfield. And it was just old, like, there's a little cafe on the town square, and there's a big courthouse in the middle, and it's really that stereotypical Midwest small town. But the people were really friendly, except for the barber. The barber, I think, had his suspicions. I went in and he was like, something about, like, I was like, hey, I'm just looking to get a haircut. And he's like, yeah, well, I think I'm full. I'm looking around.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let me look at that happens. I mean, you just reminded me, though, one of the little towns in my mission, Kettle Falls, Washington, whoever might know where that is. The sign on the front coming in says, home to 799 happy people and one grump. and we drove into town my first day there. I was like, this place is awesome.
Dude, that's my kind of place. That's amazing. That's so
and I always asked people who the grump was as a joke, and they're like, oh yeah, well, there's more than one here. They just put one on there just for fun.
Yeah.
Okay. But
the branch, like, you could not pick if you were to create a movie about a branch of Mormons in the Midwest, like, and you needed like every character in the branch, this branch had it. There's maybe 25 people in the branch. There's probably 70, baptized members in the area, but 25 would show up on a Sunday. They had a little building, and it was, there's all kinds of rumors, it's just small town America. And, but really just solved. In fact, this will date me. I remember.
I'm sorry. Let me interrupt you. You already dated yourself because you went to Rick's. I'm sorry. I better.
Yeah, that's true.
I was going to stop you and tell everybody. For all of you who are under a certain age, Rick's is BYU, Idaho. So there you go. Okay, let's get back to the story.
Well, I'm 35.
My bad. So yeah. No, I'm sorry. I'm
No,
just joking, man. All right. Sorry. Sorry to
but
interrupt you. Go back to
I
the
was,
awesome story.
I was with one of the counselors, and this guy was like a kook, like in the best sense of the word. Like he was one of those great Mormon, um, everything is a conspiracy. Um, in fact, during conference, it was when President Hunter, passed away,
Okay.
and oh my gosh, is that right? Yeah. Because it was President Benson, then President Hunter, right?
Right.
And so President Hunter passed away, and so we were having the solemn assembly, getting ready for that, and he was like, he had like the whole thing down. He's like, hey, they can pick anybody. They. I'm not saying. I'm just saying they can pick anybody.
I'm sure he had his opinions and his
I'm
theories, right?
sure
Yeah.
he did, but we were at his house for dinner, um, and they turned on the TV, and we're looking, and there's this white Bronco on the TV on every channel driving down the highway with a bunch of police behind it. We're like, what is going on? What the heck? And we're watching, and then the announcement comes on, yes, OJ Simpson is being chased by the police, and we're not sure what he's doing. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, I mean, I'm not sure if it's authorized for me to watch this police chase, but I'm watching this slow chase of OJ Simpson, who just murdered his wife. And I mean, it was crazy.
Wait a
But
second, though. Hold on a second. That
yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
that was quite a bit before your mission, though, right? When did that happen?
No, 93, 94, 93. I think 93, maybe
Okay,
94. It must have been 94, 94, 90, yeah, 94.
got it. Okay, well, all right. Sorry to interrupt. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
see,
Yes.
now I'm old. But I gotta tell you, like one of the best experiences I had in that area. Um, so there was a woman who moved into the area who was an inactive member of the church. She moved into Greenfield. She lived right on the town square. And um, and so we were there, and so we helped her move in and everything. And maybe a month later, she calls us and she's like, "Hey, I've been dating this guy. Um, I think we're getting serious, and he's interested in learning about about my religion. Can you come by?" And we're like, "Well, you twist my rubber arm. I don't know. I don't know. All of our other investigators will, pick a time." So, we so we went, and and I got to tell you, Elder Whitlock was such a great missionary. Like he was a great, and I did not recognize it at the time. He was a great companion and a great missionary. And so we started teaching this guy, and he was a nice man, but he really wasn't that interested. He had a daughter, and um, and so we were teaching. We were maybe at the third lesson, the third discussion, and we and like everything was really kind of antsy, and like there was just tension. It was just really a tension moment. And my companion, oh, and so we're like, "Hey, is everything okay?" And the daughter was like, "Oh, I just want to go play. I don't want to be here. I just want to play softball. I just want to. Can we go play, Dad? Come on, can we go play?" And the dad's like, "Hey, we gotta listen to the missionaries first, and then yeah, then I'll take you to play softball." And she was just antsy, and she was just antsy. And in the great wisdom of my companion, he just said, "You know what? Let's go play softball. Let's just go. We could do this later." And so we did. We went and played softball, and had a great time. She was happy. She was having fun, and you could tell the dad was digging it, and I was a baseball player in high school, so I was having fun, and it was just a great time. And so like our next discussion, like everything changed, like the entire feeling changed, and and he ended up accepting the gospel and getting baptized. And I think it was at the baptism. He asked to say something, and we're like, yeah. And he's like, I just want to say, you know, what convinced me that, to really take this seriously was when, Elder Whitlock and Elder Leavitt, they were at our house, and my daughter wanted to play softball, and Elder Whitlock said, okay, let's go play softball. And I realized that we were more important than their job and their message. And like the most important thing was what we needed. And, and so just learning really early, how to meet people where they were at, was such an important thing that always stuck with me. And it's one of those great stories that I played. So they did end up getting married. I played at their wedding.
Cool.
It was cool. And then they, in fact, our wedding gift was, I think that you remember those videotapes, Together Forever, so that was our,
Yeah. The free ones.
free.
Yeah.
That was my gift to them. And he was like, no, I'll watch this. I'll watch. And so they ended up, going to the temple, and maybe a year or so later, I saw him at a priesthood meeting,
Wow.
and it was just, one of those just amazing experiences. And I'll never forget that. And it really formed the rest of my mission.
So that was your trainer too, your first area, you said?
Yeah. That was my first.
That's so amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, such a good experience in your first area where you kind of like. So I feel like that exact experience is. I think almost every missionary has something like that where they discover that they're there to serve the people, not just to teach lessons.
Right.
And there's so much more to. Yeah.
In fact, I think what he said was, if I remember exactly, it was something like, it wasn't about the numbers; it was about me. And listen, I'm all for I'm all about, it is a numbers game at the end of the day, but the truth is, like, it's about saving souls one person at a time. And that's the only way we win spiritual warfare, is just one person at a time. And
yeah. Well, that's that. I love that. That's, man. Yeah. I mean, you say it, you tell a story like that, and my mind just starts going all over the place. I remember all these experiences like this, and I had one of my companions at one point was about 6'5", 6'6", and just like 300 pounds, and just really big, and like, but I think he's bigger than that. He's taller than that, but he did not like teaching. He even told me, like, on day one, he's like, Elder Bozeman, I don't really want to talk much. He's like, if you really want me to do something, I'd like to just read a scripture or something, but I don't want to have to like talk and, I don't think on my feet kind of thing. He's like, I always trip over my words and it's embarrassing. And he was straight up with me in the first week we were together. He was like, if you wouldn't mind, if you I'm like, hey, I'll take over that part just fine. I was like, if you ever feel inspired to say something, but you don't have to. I'm not going to make you talk. And he was like, okay, good. But then I figured out what his strength was. His strength was literally strength, picking stuff up and doing stuff. And so what we did, instead of going around knocking on doors and trying to meet with people where he would have to talk, we went around looking for people's yard work to do. In one particular case, we were driving by, and there's this big, how up in Washington, almost everybody has furnaces for heat, right? They don't have like electrical heat stuff like we do everywhere else in the country. But I mean, anyways, in that area, that's what they did: furnaces and wood. There's an abundance of trees up there. But if you order a bunch of wood for the winter, then they'll come in, they'll just drop a truckload of half like rounds, a bunch of rounds.
Yeah.
It's not chopped up, just drop a load of rounds on your yard and say, good luck, see you later, happy winter, and so oftentimes we would go out and do that. In our mission up in Washington, we would carry around a maul, I think it's MAUL maul,
Yeah. Yeah.
but there was one called a monster maul. And a monster maul it's bigger and it has a special wedge on the side of the actual axe head so that it doesn't get stuck, right? It won't go
Right.
down too deep before it will split the wood or not go any further, right? It's perfect. I love that thing. Anyways, we just carried that thing around the trunk of the car with several sets of gloves just in case. We literally had like a small yard work kit in the trunk of the car just in case. That's what we did. We're driving along and there was this like 65, 70-year-old guy out in the front yard by himself trying to cut this wood.
Right.
And we're like, are you serious? And we pull over and he instantly knew who we were. He's like, no, I don't need it, guys. I'm busy. I don't need to talk. I know all about what you do, and I appreciate what you guys do, but I'm busy. I was like, actually, I was literally rolling my sleeves up. I was like, we were just looking for something to do, like to get a good workout. We were thinking we were just going to find some sort of work to do and get out and go do it. We're sick of driving around today. And he was like looking at us like, what's the angle? And I was like, literally, it's like, there's no angle. And I go to the trunk and I pull out the axe and the gloves. And he was all like, his
Awesome.
mind blown. He was like, are you serious? Nobody wants to chop wood on a Saturday afternoon, right? Perfect weather in the summertime because that's when you chop all your wood. He was like, no one wants to do this. And I was like, well, this is what we're doing. We spent about 3 hours that afternoon chopping all that wood. I think I have a picture of my companion's Elder Hussey at the time, and I think he would pick up a full armload of slices of wood and just carry it over to the stack and stack it up. And it was crazy. I was like, hey, just be careful, man. He's like, it's fine, it's good, I can do this. And I'm like, okay, well, so you're like throwing throwing bricks, throwing hammers, whatever. It's just like he was that strong. But yeah, strength was his strength, and that's what I learned. And that guy let us teach him and his family. It's so cool because not everybody that you teach is going to end up joining the church.
Right.
But sometimes the best lessons you've ever had are with people that don't end up joining the church. And I had this guy let us come in that day. They made us some lemonade. He gave us a little basket full of homegrown tomatoes. That was like, I couldn't turn it down. I was like, we don't need any payment or any gifts or anything like that. And he was like, you got to let me give you something. And he was like, I come from he was an old school guy. He was like, I come from a world where if you do something like this, I got to repay you or else the debt's on me. And I don't like that. I'm like, I fully understand. And he was like, would you accept some tomatoes? Like that, I can accept tomatoes. I was like, fresh, homegrown tomatoes. I grew up with sliced tomatoes in the summertime. I was like, I'll take it. Thank you. That's it. And he let us teach him 2 or 3 lessons. And he was just like, he's like, I would love for you guys to keep coming over and teaching lessons. He said, I've been a lifelong member of this other church. My parents, were leaders in that church. I still go there. All my family goes there. He's like, I love what you're doing, but I don't see myself leaving that church, before I die. He's like, I'll let you keep coming over to teach me as long as you'd like. He's like, but just, I don't have any intention of joining. He's like, but I will say this. So like, if I remember correctly, I believe the conversation went like, there are people that I know who need your message. He was all like, and it wouldn't offend me if you spent your time looking for those people. He's like, but I'll never say no to letting you guys come over here and teach me if you like. And I was all like, he just like, he was just really upfront about it. He's like, I can't. Yeah, it's like,
yeah, this is where like, and I wish I had this perspective on my mission. And maybe if I say this, it'll resonate with somebody because I think it's so important. Maybe the most important thing about the restored gospel is the idea that you can accept the gospel after you die. Mm-hmm. Because what that means is that everything you do, that chopping wood, that meeting with him, doing those lessons, like those are not fruitless labors. There will be a time in this life or the next when he'll think on that, and it'll be because of what you did, that he'll be like, you know what? Okay, Angel Gabriel, I'll take a listen. You know what I mean? Like that. That's where I think we missed the boat on stuff on trying to think about like saving soul. Yes, baptism is an ordinance that needs to be done. But you know what? That's what temples are for, brother. You know what I mean?
That's true. Yeah.
I'm just so much more, I guess, tolerant is the word now of like the good things that we do, are not just for this life. And it's not like earning points. That's not the deal. I'm not earning my salvation. I'm not but it's about blessing other people. And everything that you do. And I could say the same thing about people of other faiths that, have really influenced me. And me, Will, like this is how I'm built. Like I guarantee you, when I die and I meet Peter at the pearly gates, he's going to go, Mike, you know what? You were right about these things and you were wrong about these things. No matter what, like that's the deal. And I'm going to be like, okay, well then I'll discard that and I'll go there, as easy as that. And I think, if we can like show that example so that when other people go to the pearly gates, it becomes easy for them to discard their bad beliefs and embrace, the truth.
No, I love that. I love that. And I love what you're saying about how the work you're doing is not fruitless, even if you don't see the actual fruit right from it.
Yeah.
It's like it's still valuable. Some of the terminology used, it's labor in the field, right? You're called to serve, called to labor, right?
Yeah.
You serve the people. You serve the people that you're called to. I talk about this with other people, other guests on the show here, that you're called to serve those people. And not all of them are going to end up joining the church, at least in this life, right?
Right.
And it's like, but you're called to serve them. And I think that's the part that really is the part that makes you a missionary. It's like you're serving them regardless of what you're getting from it. Are you only going to serve people that are going to take the lessons from you? Are you only going to serve people who commit to get baptized? I mean, like, it's not a realistic way to think, and then your expectations are always going to be skewed to what you can get from the relationship.
Right.
And the moment you
and let that go,
you let that go, you drop that, and you're just there to serve. And everybody talks about how they love the people that they serve. Yes. By the time I was done my mission, it was the hardest thing was leaving, because I loved the people.
Yeah.
And you would never think that when you show up to a brand new place, you don't know anybody at all, and a lot of them are mean to you. You never think about like how much you're going to love them, but when you start serving them and you start loving them, yeah.
You never know. This is why like it drives me. The idea that and by the way, I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, there was, the idea that like, there was an idea floating around that if you didn't ever get a chance then to hear the gospel, then you will maybe get a chance in the next life. And, I just think that's wrong. I think like you're going to get as many like God is a merciful God. And what, because I showed up as a missionary on a day that like your wife died or something happened or you're in a bad mood, like God's going to hold that against you. Like it doesn't make sense. And I think like, okay, so I'm gonna go deep here for a second. I think that like Joseph Smith, so yeah, obviously, I believe Joseph Smith is a prophet of God. And so having said that, he said that the most comforting doctrine that he could ever teach parents is that, and I'm paraphrasing obviously, but is that when they raise their child, that if that child goes astray, no matter how far or where that child goes, at some point, and he says, in this life or in the next, he will, because he was born under the covenant, he will hear the call of that covenant, and he will return back, and have a heavenly rest. And when I think about that, and I really think take that concept to its end, I have to go to well, guess what? We are all children of God. There is a heavenly mother. He is married. He is married in a covenant. We are all born under his covenant. And so, what does that mean? That means that if what Joseph Smith said is true, and I believe it is, that means that no matter how far or how far astray we go, at some point in this life or the next, we will hear the call of that covenant of our Heavenly Father and return to him. And that to me changes the entire perspective of how I go about treating people, because they're my brother, they're my sister, and I'm going to have an eternal life with these people.
Thank you. Yes, no, that's you're right. That is such a wonderful way to think of everybody else around you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
God is a perfect father. He didn't know that you were gonna go and rob a bank, or you didn't know that Hitler was gonna murder Jews. He didn't know that? No, but he's got a plan. It's a perfect plan to bring people back to him willingly, right, and with full free agency. And I don't know how that works. I'm not trying to say, I don't know. But what I do know is that he is way more graceful, and he's way more forgiving than we could ever imagine. And so, and again, like I said, I wish I had that perspective on my mission, because it would have, not that I think I was a pretty darn good missionary. I tried my best, but I think having that perspective only comes maybe with wisdom and maybe having children.
Yeah, you get it. Yeah, exactly. You're right, though. I mean, that is part of the cycle of wisdom, is to go through these phases of life, and if you could just go back to the mission now with all of your knowledge, right? How much quote unquote how much better could you be? But better is a relative term. But I tell you, I think I was just telling somebody else this recently, that you get your tickets to fly home from the mission, and you're like, I just figured out how to do this. Right. I'm going
and this is the beautiful thing about missions. That's how it's exactly supposed to be. Because the second we think that we can do it, the second our hubris takes over and the Spirit goes away.
Yeah.
Because we're supposed to convert by the Spirit. We're supposed to teach by the Spirit and convert by the Spirit. And in fact, I remember we invited. I was in Council Bluffs at this time, and we invited a couple, and these guys were a great couple. Okay, so this is funny. So they lived in this trailer park. It was the same trailer park that the other missionaries lived in, and it was literally the missionary trailer was backed up to this railroad tracks that every time at 3 a.m. The worst. But even funnier is in the parking lot of that trailer park, and it's right and it's probably still there. You go right from Omaha into Council Bluffs, and it's just, you just turn right, and in that parking lot is a strip club. Okay. So these missionaries are staying.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah, it was hilarious. But what's funny is it was one of those weird things where the missionaries were in a different area, just where you end up living, and that happens sometimes. But so we were actually teaching this couple in the trailer park, and we invited them to state conference, and they came, and and I remember the state conference, and it was one of those. the speaker that I'll never forget because I won't never remember because I thought it was the most boring talk in the history. Like I think I think she read the entire Little Prince as a talk.
Oh, well.
And I was like I was, and by the way, I was mortified. I was like, oh my gosh, these people, they came
You
to
were
like,
like, you were embarrassed
yeah.
that they were there for, yeah, yeah.
And it was just like, I cannot believe that they're listening. So, and they were sitting right in front of us and we were like in the back, so we were in those metal chairs, and so the conference gets over and I stand up and I'm like, going, hey, and they're like, and like, there's tears in their eyes. And
Wow.
I'm like, so I was wise enough to shut up.
Like you didn't make fun of the speaker or anything.
Right, I was like, I'm so sorry.
Oh my gosh.
No, but there's literally tears in their eyes. And they're like, we want to get baptized.
Wow.
That like, and they said after hearing that talk, like something came over us and we looked at each other and we said, we want to get baptized. And this is the church we want to belong to. And it's those, and again, like you look back and it goes back to what you said, like the second you think you got it figured out, like you're done. But you can't have experiences like that.
Right.
Because if I was smart, I would have like, hey, let's talk in the hall. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
But
I'll tell you what, I had in a similar fashion, I've talked to a few different missionaries and elders here on the show, and Fast Sunday, right? That's the first Sunday. All your investigators are going to end up coming on a Fast Sunday,
right?
And it's all the testimony meeting, and you're kind of afraid that people are going to say whatever. You never know what they're going to say. But I've had people that would lean over to me like, are these like rehearsed or memorized or something? Because like people would say like they know, and it would recite the different things. I know the church is true, and Joseph Smith the prophet, and the Book of Mormon is true. Like say all that stuff like in a row, like it was rehearsed. Because that's what they hear all the time, and then that's what they're going to say at the end of their testimony. And these people are like, are these are they like memorized or something? I've had that happen before. But one of my favorite times bringing somebody to church, the first Sunday that there was a couple of investigators that were coming, and there's a guy named Pete that came, and it was General Conference Sunday, and this is back before anybody could watch it at home. So you had to come to the ward building, and so everybody still came, everybody still dressed up, the place is packed, and so I'm sitting there with Pete, and he's like, we're just watching on TV. I was like, actually, it's like this Sunday is actually a very special one. It's twice a year, General Conference, and we actually get to hear the prophet speak. I mean, this is exciting. You showed up on a great day. I was like, and he was like, okay, and one of the first is a Sunday morning session. One of the first speakers was Elder Oaks, and he starts talking with his powerful voice.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, and I knew it was a good talk. I could feel it, but I didn't know if it was going over his head or if he was. Elder Oaks was in the middle of his talk, and Pete leaned over. He's like, "I want to get baptized next week," and I was like, I don't think I've ever been more cool and calm in my life. And I was like, sounds good. We can do that. Yeah. I was like, really like, sounds good. Like that was like, I didn't get excited. I didn't like, all right, sounds good, buddy. Yeah. All right. Nothing like that. I was like, yeah, I think we can handle that, but Elder Oaks, that talk, I'll always remember that, it's just like, that you never know when the Spirit's going to touch somebody, when they're going to decide that this is the church that they want to belong to and want to get baptized. And I was just but yes, okay. So you were still talking.
I think like what's funny is unless you've been on a mission, like when somebody does that, it's like if you're a sales guy and somebody just gave you $1 million deal. like, and so you have like those butterflies of like, really, is this real? Like, what? Like, how do like somebody calls you on the phone and says, hey, I got this deal for you. It's $1 million. Do you want it? I mean, I'm not sure. And you're like, I think we could take care of that. Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
So,
Oh man.
that's what it is, man. And when people are make that decision, and when you see like their lives change, so jumping, I mean, dude, I could be here all night. Like you like stoke my memory, and I'm just like, I could go on all night with these stories. So lead up the story. I had the privilege of being involved, either teaching, actually doing the baptism, or whatever, of a Methodist minister, an RLDS bishop, and a Baptist minister at different times on my mission. Yeah. And
Wow.
And it was a cool, like and some of them were like total gimmies, like the Methodist minister was like, it was another situation where he was involved with this woman that was a member of the church, and she wasn't going to marry him unless he joined the church. And so, he gave all that up and found a job, and then he wanted to talk to the missionaries, and we like, so like I think we taught like 4 lessons in one day. It's one of those things where we were just getting that guy baptized, but he was such a cool guy, and they were such spirit-filled discussions, because like he would bring his ideas and what he's learned from the seminary and all that stuff, and I learned a lot from these guys, man. I learned so much. The RLDS bishop was Council Bluffs is the second largest RLDS community. I guess they call themselves Church of Christ. See, I'm getting myself again. I think they call themselves Church of Christ, or
I think it's Community of Christ now. I believe.
Okay, Community of Christ, right?
Yeah.
And so so it's the second largest community is in Council Bluffs. They have a big like tabernacle, but this guy was a bishop, and that's a paid position in that church,
Right.
And they but he had befriended some members, and eventually he like was interested, and he was one of the ones that I taught, and then other missionaries came in. But what was so cool about him, I mean, because I think there's with very few exceptions, it's always the relationship between the member and the investigator is always like that's always the key. There has to be a reason why you want to do this, why you want to change your life. So some members have befriended him, and just like, and at one point, and I wasn't in this discussion, but the missionaries were teaching him, and it got pretty kind of heated. And I don't know the reason, but it got heated. And the bishop like goes out for a walk, and there's the member of the ward, standing right there, and he and the bishop, the guy is kind of upset, but then he walks by and he turns to the member and he gives him a wink and says, "How about them Gadian robbers?" And then just keeps walking. But this guy in Lincoln, Nebraska, he was a former Baptist minister who got divorced, so he ended up leaving his church, and he was a stereotypical Baptist minister, big voice. He's a big guy, and boom, but really thoughtful guy. And so we would get talking and get in discussions. We would talk. Anyway, so he ended up joining the church, and our first stake priesthood meeting, he's there, and the stake president asked him to say the closing prayer. He's like, "Sure, I'd be happy to do that."
Okay.
So he gets up there and he gets up there and everyone bows their head, closes their eyes. He's like, I've been asked to say the closing prayer, but before I do, and he goes on like this 15-minute, and it was beautiful, like testimony. And I think most of it was like it was about the Doctrine and Covenants. Like he just like loved that there was modern scripture today.
Yes.
And like he had a testimony of Joseph Smith, and he just loved that whole idea of like, you mean like God is talking to people now and we can actually like receive, direction, and we have this book that teaches us how we're supposed to live today, not 1,000 years ago. And so he does this for like 15 minutes, and it's in Baptist, like us Mormons don't know what to do with this. And then Joseph Smith, blah, blah, and
it would be so cool if people started giving talks like that at church, hands flying, pounding on the pulpit,
It was the best. And my companion and I are staring at each other going, it's so good. And then he looks out and he goes, and so then he stops, and everyone's just like staring at like they looking at a ghost. They're just like, what the heck? And he goes, let us pray. He says a prayer, and it was just, and I don't think anybody closed their eyes. They just didn't know what to do.
That's cool. That is cool. You just knew how to catch their attention, right? No. Pause.
Yep.
Let us pray in his deep voice. Oh, that's just cool. That's cool. That is so cool.
It was great. And so, that was, man.
I grew up in Alabama, and it's, very much the mission field, especially when I was a kid. It was not a very developed area of the church. But most of the people in the church there came from other churches. They converted. My parents converted from. Each one of them grew up a different Protestant church. But I remember getting some of the spirit and culture from the other churches in our sacrament meetings. It was really fun. And then when I, got older and went to regular wards, in like major cities and stuff that were filled with regular, LDS members and stuff like that, I was like, oh, these are a little bit lower energy than what I'm used to. A little more reserved.
It kind of breaks my heart because I grew up in Northern California, where, my dad would hold his interviews at our house, because, the church was too far away. It was like 30 minutes away, and, but there's something, I remember this was a shock to me when, when my parents moved, my parents moved to St. George while I was on my mission. So that was kind of a weird thing, but it was strange to me. Like when I went back to St. George, and everybody's a Mormon, and everybody's a member of the church, and like being like in California, like you were special, man. Like if you came across an LDS guy, like you were friends for life, like no matter what.
Right.
The guy could have been the biggest nerd and you're the football star, dude. You were friends for freaking life, because it was just like there was that bond, and you were up against. We had Combi Bible Church, that was always bagging on the Mormons, and so that was kind of our so that's the environment that I grew up in, and I miss out with my kids. Like I wish my kids had felt that kind of bond, just being a member of the church, how special that is, and how unique it is, and so. Man, I gotta tell you,
I do know the feeling. Hold that story though. It was, our ward when I was growing as a kid, it consisted of like the entire county and then some. It was a populated county. We had about 5 or 6 6A schools in our county. It was a big county and one ward. And, all of us from all the different schools, all came to church together. And yeah, it was, if we ever ran into each other at school events, like, games and whatever else,
Yeah.
it was instantly like, we know each other. Our relationship here supersedes the school stuff.
Right.
And I remember a couple times I'd cut away from my school group, whatever, to go over and shake hands or give a hug to one of my friends from church, because it overrided everything else. I did this actually, it was such a strong thing. My senior year, I went to prom. I went with a girl just in my neighborhood that I knew for a while. And it wasn't a girlfriend. It's just somebody that I knew, and invited her. And we went to senior prom together. But there was one other girl in my school who was LDS, and she went, and she did not have a date at all. And at our school, they call your name out and walk you down the center of the room.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Right? Like they announce you, like, Lord so-and-so and lady whatever, and it's like whatever. But that's how they do it. They would walk you down the middle. Anyways, this other girl from my church was there, and I told my date, he's like, hey, like, I know this might sound weird, but she doesn't have a date. And she's a senior, and I'm a senior. My date wasn't a senior, so she didn't get called to walk down the center. And so I was like, if you're okay, and I hope that you're okay with this, I'm going to walk her down as a courtesy, because she's a member of the church that I go to, and she's all alone. And the girl was totally fine with it. So I took that time to walk down the aisle with her. Everybody thought we went to prom together, me and her. In fact, everybody was cheering, and there was a picture was taken of me and her walking down. That picture ended up in the yearbook. That picture ended up in the paper, or whatever it was. It ended up, and everybody thought that me and this other girl that I actually invited was so mad. I was so mad. I was like, sorry, but like, that's how strong that church bond is. It supersedes everything else, especially in an area like Alabama, where there's just very few members. And everybody knows it. As a matter of fact, if someone told you they were a member of the church on the other side of the state, you probably knew their family, or had a connection to it. I mean, it's just,
not just that, but like, everybody else knows you're Mormon.
Yeah, see, that's something too. Yeah,
you could have not gone to church in 10 years, and people still know that you're Mormon. And so like, and I had amazing. There's still friends to this day from high school, that they're not members of the church, but they know me, and they know what that means. They know that like, I don't drink. They know that people might think I wasn't invited to parties because I'm no fun, but I think they were in some ways they protected me,
Look, I want to interrupt you for a second too, because that's one of my favorite aspects of growing up in the mission field, if you will, is that you have this impression that if you grow up and if you're on the outside of this looking in, or you watch the movies and the things about growing up in the church and being able to withstand temptation and stuff like that, like, everybody that knew that I was Mormon, that I was LDS. They told me what I believed.
Right.
They're like, oh yeah, you don't.
What are you doing with that Coca-Cola?
Yeah, you don't drink. Yeah, you guys don't drink that. I know you don't drink that, because they told me that at my church, that you guys don't smoke, you don't drink coffee, right? And one time I was at a dance once, like at a school dance, and so I think somebody even told me, like, I didn't think you guys were supposed to dance. I'm like, that's some other church, I think. I don't. It's not ours.
Hey, you want to come to one of our youth dances?
I know. But it wasn't until I was later that I realized they filmed Footloose in Utah. And if you are in the Lehigh Roller Mills is still there, you drive on the interstate, you get the whole Footloose thing. Oh yeah, oh no, absolutely, yeah. The Lehigh Roller Mills is still the centerpiece of Lehigh, Utah, and right on the interstate. I think they filmed it actually in Payson, the actual movie schools and neighborhoods all in Payson, Utah, which is just down the road. But like, so yeah, anyways, but yeah, we absolutely dance. In fact, like, it's like it's the one of the most awkward parts of growing up in the church is going to all the church dances, right?
Right.
So guess we dance. And but yeah, I mean, going back though, I had lots of people. I had a scenario once where I was invited to a big New Year's Eve party for everyone at school. It was not like a school thing. It's just like somebody's house, and there were dozens and dozens of people invited. I didn't know this until after, but I came, and when I came, nobody was drinking. Nobody was drinking. And it wasn't until later, the host of the party, someone that I knew really well, she told everyone to put away all the drinks.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
until I was gone, because I told her I could only stay for about an hour or so. I was like, I can't stay too long. I was like, I can't stay till midnight, or whatever. She's like, that's totally fine. Just, come on over and say hey and stay as long as you want. I was like, okay, great. And there was no alcohol that I could see at all. I didn't know. I didn't know anybody who had been drinking or anything at all. She literally protected me from it because she wanted to respect my belief not to drink alcohol.
Yeah.
And everyone else there did as well. Probably a couple of dozen people at that party respectfully put it all away just for me to come, because she was afraid that if I got there and I saw everyone drinking that I wouldn't stay, and I wouldn't have.
Yeah.
And and it wasn't until after I left that she told me, or somebody else told me, that she asked everybody to put away. I felt like, it was really respectful. And it was just an example of people do respect you. It was, if you do stick to, you do stick to your
Yeah.
beliefs, stick to the truth, stick to your beliefs, don't give in, and they will respect you. The
Well,
moment, yeah,
and I think like, and you say that, and I know what you mean, but it's not like stick to your beliefs in a like, I'm not this, I'm not that, but just living the way you live.
right. Yes, no, and I think the biggest aspect of respect here is that I'm not pushing it on everyone else.
Yeah.
I didn't try to make everybody else feel bad. I never would have done that. I never would have made somebody feel bad if they were drinking something. I grew up back in the day when people were still smoking on the backside of the school or whatever, and whatever, and so stuff like that. And I never tried to make somebody feel bad about them doing things that I didn't believe in. It just wasn't. I've never felt like that was my purpose to say something about it. And people would always apologize to me. Like, oh, I'm so sorry I was drinking this. Sometimes people say, I'm so sorry I was drinking a coffee in front of you. I didn't mean to offend you. I didn't mean to offend you. I was like, you don't mean to offend me at all. Like, I grew up, like nobody else in my extended family are members of the church. So every time we went to go see people, it was like fresh brewed coffee every day in the whole house. And everybody's sitting around and drinking coffee except for me and my parents and family, And so, like, I'm just used to that. And so, but if you don't make people feel bad about it, and you don't try and,
Yeah, you're not judging them.
you're not judging them, not pushing on them, but then they're very appreciative and respectful of it, and they'll respect you for sticking to it, Yeah.
And that's the thing, like, and you know, so it's funny, I think. I think being able, we talk about like diversity, and sometimes that word can be kind of a wishy-washy, kind of have kind of a negative connotation, like, oh, so you're
It's a buzzword, political buzzword, right?
A political buzzword, and a lot of times it means permissive or or even celebrate, but like when we're dealing with real people. When we're dealing with, like, when I was in Nebraska, when I was in Iowa, you're dealing with real people with real problems. And, and you realize that, like, man, we're all just in this thing together trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And like I said before, like, I'm not even saying like I'm right. I could be wrong about all this stuff, and I'm okay with that. And because I think, because I know that, like, when the ultimate deal is that God loves me, like, that's the deal, is that I am a son of God. I'm a prince to the Almighty. I'm a guy who just, who is fallen and broken, but that just means I have a great story at the end. And that's, the best stories always are that. And, I was in Omaha, and my companion, Elder Bo Cornell, man, this guy was a stud. He was such a, he was one of those, like, I hate to say nerdy. He wasn't. He was like a good looking, but he was like a skinny, thin, soft spoken guy from Pleasant Grove, and by the way, my battery's at 10%, so we may have to do a part 2 at some point.
We'll do a second one. Yes.
But we were in, like, the worst part of Omaha. We were knocking doors, and we're knocking on this door, and nobody's there. So we turn around the stairs, and these are like, oh, man, I wish I could describe it. They were like the crotchety stairs, just broken down places. You're not sure if the stairs are going to fall out underneath you as you walk down the stairs, type of a thing. And this guy is coming up the stairs, and he looks at us, and he's just like, and he had this, like, weird look in his eye. He's like, "You guys Mormons?" We're like, "Yeah." And he's like, and then he goes into full, like, Full Metal Jacket, like, what's it called when you go, like, boot camp mode. He's like the sergeant. He starts yelling at us like, "What do you think?" And I can honestly say that's the first
He's
time.
getting on to you because you're in a bad part of town or something? Like,
No, he's getting on to us because he's mad at the world.
Okay.
We were just his opportunity. And he was drunk. Like, I could tell you, that's the first time I ever tasted alcohol, because he was spitting in my face, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And so he's yelling at me, and I'm like, I wouldn't call myself a fighter, but I'm not going to step down. And so I'm just like, kind of chest puffed up, and I'm just, and I'm just like kind of taking it, but I'm like, dude, what are you doing here, man? What are you doing? Finally, he turns around to my companion, and he starts laying into him. And so I'm kind of watching the situation real quick, and I'm like, here's this drunk guy, and he's kind of got us cornered. And my companion's kind of sitting back, like imagine this, like, this skinny Utah Mormon guy, just like kind of sitting back like this, and he's just taking it. He's taking it, like, and the guy's like, "Are you scared of me? Are you scared of me?" And man, Elder Cornell, dude, heart of a lion. He's like, "No." He's like, "What are you scared of? What are you scared of?" He's like, "I only fear God." And he's like, "Oh." Like,
yeah, the guy just, like, shut him down. Like, shut him down.
No comeback. And right then, his, like, daughter came up. The guy's daughter comes up the stairs, like, "Come on, Dad," pulls him away. But, like, like, you don't get experiences like that anywhere else, or just, just the craziest. And like I said, I could do, like, every day was like that for me. Like, you're praying. I'll tell you this last story. So I'll have 3 more to tell it.
I love it. Keep it going.
But we had signing sisters in our mission, and they were so cool because signing sisters, they're dealing with the deaf, and they're in this, they're like it's like a nationwide mission. It's weird. So they'll, like, be in an area for like 6 months, and then they'll be sent to Minnesota or something, right? And then so it's
a good. Our neighbor just got called to the signing mission. So yeah, you're right. Yeah. She'll rotate around. Yeah, but go ahead. Yeah.
And it was cool. Like we would go to, like, these deaf football games, and they're like, each of the team has, like, a big bass drum on the sideline, and that's how they're doing their count, to snap the ball. I mean, it was crazy. It was so fun. But so this woman decided to get baptized, and you know, and so two things happened. Number one, she was deathly afraid of water, like paranoid beyond belief. And so like we're like, how is this going to happen? And we don't, and so and I don't remember I think it was Elder Johnson was my companion at the time, and so he was going to do the baptism and I was going to do the confirmation, and so he does the baptism and she is just flailing. He can't get her under the water, and and again, it was one of those things that kind of breaks my heart. I wish they kind of had the standard that they have today of like, you don't have to get them all the way underwater, dude. That's a mockery. Like, you just got to get them under the water. If a hair comes up, it's fine. That's kind of what the standard is today, where before it was like, man, if you see a hair, you got to do the whole thing again. Like,
right. Like, let's say, some people were very letter of the law on some of these things. Yeah. So,
yeah, and so she's flailing, and so I think it took him like 5 times, and finally they ended up like going forward, and I think he like pulled her down, and so it was kind of a traumatic experience for her. And but I remember they asked me to do the confirmation, and I was like, how am I gonna do? Like, I said, so do you want, like, I'll speak and you translate, or what do you want to do? And they're like, no, why don't you learn some sign? I'm like, it's like in 2 days, you want me to learn sign language? And so, but it was really cool. I spent like literally like the next day with the signing sisters, and my companion learning sign language. And like, the biggest thing for me was I learned the alphabet, because then I could spell. And they sat her down on this chair and they put a mirror up so she could see me sign as I'm signing the confirmation. And it was one of the most spiritual experiences I think I've ever had, because just, like, I had to go slow. I had to really think about what I was going to say, not just to feel the spirit, but to have like an economy of words so I could communicate what I was supposed to be saying, and like half of it, like I said, I was just spelling, next word, A, B, whatever. But I learned enough. I was able to do it. And, it was just a remarkable experience for me to be able to have that opportunity to like really, feel the spirit in a unique way, because I had no idea what I was doing. And I was literally guided by the spirit, because there was no other way to do it. Wow. And it was really cool. So, one last thing I just got to say, because I got to bookend this thing. So I had a baptism my first
week, my first week out.
Mission. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I'll like I said, if you want, we'll do a part 2. But I did I didn't tell you about the pioneer trails in Iowa, and dude, it's great.
We'll get you back on. We'll do a second episode with you.
So we did so yeah, it was the Sunday, so it was literally the day before I went to the airport. And by the way, I also have to tell you that like I say I was the last year and a half or 2.5 year missionary, because my mission president like gets my paperwork to be, my call was from this time to this time. But remember, I went home for a little bit, right, and then was serving there, and then went to Nebraska. And so he's like, why am I getting this paperwork why is Elder Leavitt going home? And I was like, this is what happened, and this is why you sent me to Greenfield, President. And he's like, so he said, he's like, well, I know people. Do you want to stay? I'm like, heck yeah. So he calls his cousin, President Monson, and he's like, hey, I got this missionary. Can we get a little exception and let him stay a little bit longer? So I stayed for another, I think, 4 months or.
Wow, really?
Yeah. I was able to serve my entire 2 years in Nebraska.
Wow.
It was really cool. So anyway, so yeah, my last week I was there, I was we baptized a family. And it was just one of the coolest. Yeah. I mean, just like, yeah, I mean, it was amazing to be able to like say goodbye in that way. And to, so I get on the plane. Oh my gosh. How could I forget this? So I'm the only person. So everybody else is going to Utah. I'm going. Well, I can't remember what the reason was. There was a weird reason why I was on a plane by myself going home. Everybody else was on this other plane, and so I'm on the plane. And of course, this is before 9/11, so you could do a lot of things back then.
You could walk right up to the gate with your family. Yeah,
walk up right to the gate, dude. I'm on the plane, and this guy from Omaha, just a ward member, like. He was one of the cool guys that like we would hang out with, and he would go out with us, but he wasn't like, anyway, he was just a really solid, good guy. I'm on the plane, and this guy, like, I see him walking down the aisle of the plane. I'm like, hey, what are you doing? He's like, there you are. And he comes up to me, and he gives me this big old hug. He's like, Elder Leavitt, man, I know you're going home by yourself. I couldn't let you leave by saying thank you and how much we appreciated you and just how much you meant to the ward, and what you did here was amazing. And then he got off. They let him on the plane just to say goodbye to me, and then he walks off the plane, and I'm like, dude, like,
yeah,
I don't even know what to say to that. Right?
That's
like,
amazing.
You're just like. I mean, I like you feel like it's just so, it's one of those moments where you just like the whole mission just like rushes back into your brain.
Yeah, I would imagine.
And you're just like thinking about all the things that you did. And because of that, like I was kind of sad because I was by myself. So I was like thinking all this stuff I screwed up on. And trust me, like playing Joseph Smith's first prayer at the Church of God of Prophecy was probably not the best idea. I'll just tell you that.
Okay.
So,
next episode, I want to hear all about that. Yes.
Right. But it was just amazing. Anyway, I think my phone's dying.
Man, look, it was absolutely wonderful to have you on the show. Absolutely wonderful. I really appreciate it.
Anytime, brother. And you're one of the good guys. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope your stories today can inspire somebody inspire somebody to do something good, and maybe, just maybe, some of the experiences you've had, the knowledge you gained is going to be useful for somebody if they remember it when they're in that moment when they have to think on their feet and say something, and sometimes it's scary. So I appreciate you being on the show. I believe we just lost you on the feed here, but everyone who's watching, oh, you're back. Good. You're not gone yet. All right. I thought your phone died. Just want to say thank you again. Everyone who's watching, you're watching The Best Mission Stories. I'm your host, Will Bozeman, Elder Bozeman, on the show. We've got Elder Leavitt here. And
nice to be called that again.
Isn't that nice? He'll be back again one day to share more of his amazing experiences from the mission. If any of you out there listening or watching have a great story, or just have a desire to share some of your stories with us here on the show, you're more than welcome to interview you here and have you on the podcast and hear your stories. Thank you so much for watching us and being with us today, and we'll see you next time on The Best Mission Stories.